Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's America's Man's Man. How the heck are we doing today? The unholy alliance of the fake news media. That's right, the fake news media and Silicon Valley. They're still after me. Google is still trying to destroy me. They're leaving the America's Man's Man YouTube channel there for a moment, and they do this to all of the good guys for a time. Basically so they can demoralize you before they take all of your subscribers away. And we're smarter than that. That's why all of us, all of America's Man's Men are headed over to americasmansman.com. 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 And you're following the americasmansman.com blog, and I thank you for that because it is only a matter of time before the unholy alliance of the fake news media and Silicon Valley, perhaps epitomized by the Washington Compost, because Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Compost. It's only a matter of time before the unholy alliance of the fake news and Silicon Valley destroys the America's Man's Man channel on YouTube, which is why so many of you are coming on over to americasmansman.com. Those of you who are smart, so you're not left out in the dark to fend for yourselves when the fake news comes for you. A lot of you think to yourselves, well, gee, maybe, why should I... so what? So the fake news media and Silicon Valley came after America's Man's Man. Well, see, I never wanted to become America's Man's Man. I just came out of the gym here. I never, ever wanted to become America's Man's Man. I just wanted to live a good, holy life, wanted to live a productive life, do something good for my country, and create real art in an age of fake news idiots. One of the artists that the late great Neil Postman, the media theorist, who is probably before America's Man's Man one of the greats of the technological determinism interpreters, he quoted Kurt Cobain of Nirvana. "Here we are now, entertain us!" And that's kind of the defining, the Achilles heel of the millennial. Always have to be entertained, always need to be pushing something to get a reaction. And by the way, one of the only resources that will actually be of use to you on America's Man's Man, when you go on americasmansman.com, you want to enter your email address in the top of the window that you see there, and then you want to click subscribe. But the vast majority of millennials, this is all they do all day. They're like, click, click, ha, click, ha, click, ha, click, ha. And, if you were to look at yourself doing that, what you look like is, excuse me, we're completely unscripted here. This is not a movie set that you see here. This is what I'm looking at, okay? There are no teleprompters here. You see this? You see what I see, okay? Unlike the fake news idiots, first of all, half of my brain really is tied behind my back. Or more accurately, it's half of my brain is focused on safety, as all good drivers are focused on the road primarily. So when I say we're live and unscripted, again, this is not a movie set. This is just north of the hub of the universe, and this is this is real. This is coming to you a live recording. This is unedited, uninterrupted, unscripted, and with half of my brain tied behind my back, you know that the intelligence and the wisdom that you are soaking in as you not passively consume, but as you study, as you pore over this broadcast from America's Man's Man in the just north of the hub of the universe, you know that you're getting the real deal, because this is not the fake news. This is not some Silicon Valley twat like Cory Booker or Mark Zuckerberg who uses the word folks. All right, folks. I'm really folksy because I use the word folks a lot, like Mark Zuckerberg or Cory Booker. No, you know that this is real. This is the real deal. This is America's man's man. And you would know if half of my brain weren't tied behind my back, because I would have gotten into an accident by now or something insane like that. But no, this is the real deal. I want to go straight to this Johnson Amendment that President Trump. First of all, let's focus on the main story. You know how it's like you got to stay focused on the ball, right? You keep focused on the ball. If you're distracted, you're going to lose sight of what really matters. Okay. You got to focus. You got to focus on the ball. And the fake news in Silicon Valley, here's their game, okay? A lot of talk about signal stealing and whatnot. That's what the fake news is talking about these days, just north of the hub of the universe. By the way, and here's the thing. It may seem like I'm going off on tangents. You know why millennials need tangents? Because most millennials are so god-awfully uneducated. And again, I don't hold this against you because you haven't received the benefit of, you've basically been living in a fake news world, an academic snowflake world, and so you don't know the way things are. See, I knew the greatest generation, and they imparted their wisdom to me, and it's my pleasure and privilege to pass on that wisdom to you, so that you may be more than a snowflake, which is what most millennials are. I haven't met a whole lot of millennials that really have it together. I mean, I'm the smartest millennial that most people know, and I'm the smartest millennial that I know. So, and that's why I'm privileged, and it has nothing to do with my skin color. It's not white privilege. It's because what you're born as is a gift from God, okay, and that's not a privilege. That's what we call the natural law. God saw fit to design us the way that we are, and the best way to the best way to experience yourself is by being grateful for what you have, and being grateful that America's man's man can help to show you how to live that better life that you so desire. Because even you stalkers who are stalking America's man's man, I mean, I get how you became stalkers. I get it. I mean, you come from a really effed up place, and a lot of America does. And here we go straight for the core. A lot of people, they want to dance around the sides. They want to blame academia, which has a lot to do with it. The activist judges do have a lot to do with it. But here, I want to go straight for the core, and I want to stop that slow poison drip of evil into your mind, which is a combination, a poisonous cocktail of fake news, media, and infotainment, which is, a lot of people don't realize that the same people who, I've said before, the comic hacks, like that freak is his name, Jimmy Stewart or whatever his, those late night dudes. He's like a has-been now, but anyway, I don't watch them anymore. I don't know who they are. Jay Leno was kind of funny. I kind of miss him being on the air. I wish he'd make a comeback. I suppose the fake news audience is a little bit too intelligent for the likes of Jay Leno today, so they have to resort to dumb comedic hacks like that Cocoa Butter Man or whatever his name is. It's just life is so much better without fake news and the whole fake news infotainment empire. Again, a lot of people don't realize that the late night comic hacks who deliver really stupid remarks loosely based on the fake news story, which is itself a fable. a misguided fable of Satan. All these, and I know that's a really long sentence to take in. Millennials need tangents like this one, because you have no context. You have no base of relevance. You have no frame of reference, and you have no frame of reference because your union public school teachers, your union government school teachers, just like mine. I name names on americasmansman.com. This is part of the reason the fake news is after me, because the fake news is also run by devious unions, and they don't like when you attack their communist unions. Oh, they hate when you attack communism. They want to laugh at you. They want to say, oh, he's calling me an atheistic communist. It's so 1950s. Well, that's what they are, folks. Your government school teachers, if you grew up in the land of the free, home of the brave, the same time I did, the age of millennials, after Al Gore invented the internet, right? You grew up in the age of communist school teachers, communist college lecturers. I went to one of the most wonderful conservative schools. It's called Franciscan University. And my media teacher just happened to be of a very communist persuasion. I don't want to name him because I don't want to... it's otherwise a very godly school, but they have a lot of misinformation. They never made the connection. I kept bringing it up in my media and society classes, the whole idea of Brave New World and the fake news universe. But even my media teachers, well-intentioned as they were, they didn't understand how bad it was. And that was just 10 short years ago. I graduated a little over 10 years ago, 2008, from Franciscan University. None of us knew how bad the fake news was pulling one over on the American people. None of us knew how much the fake news exploits the American people. There were talk about media theories like the hypodermic needle theory, and you got to look all this up because we just don't have time to educate you fully. But we'll cover it eventually. We'll get around to it. The hypodermic needle theory, the theory of technological determinism, that the medium is the message. A lot of pastors are still in denial. One of the good books, apart from the Bible, of course, there's the good book, and it's not Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. It's the Bible. It's the Word of God. Okay, it's the Word of God. One of the great resources that helped to tip me off. They should have been reading Amusing Ourselves to Death gets to the point. But Franciscan University, they're a little bit mired in faulty Catholic theology, the same theology that has led the current Pope completely off the rails to support sodomy and the religion of global warming, which is really a parody of what we Christians know to be hell, and so it's a religion, and it's a fake religion. It's a fake religion born out of the fake news and technological determinism. So anyway, the signposts were there, but when I went to Franciscan University, none of us knew. They still don't know. They still remain unconvinced. There are, because listen, in Christian world, in Christianese, I ran a Bible club with a satanic pastor's daughter when I was in high school. It's because the churches in New England these days are not actual churches. They're seats of Satan is what they. I mean, they're we'll call them backslid Christians, because I don't want to be judgmental. We're going to get around to this because I want to talk about the Johnson Amendment. But you have to keep in mind, millennials and many boomers for that. But see, boomers grew up on fake news. The fake news were the boomers' gods, where today the fake Twitterverse are the millennials' gods, and it's really just a slow descent into hellish ignorance. Our vocabularies are shrinking. Some counts of IQ, the psychologists say that we're getting smarter. But there are several reasons that's not true. We're actually getting dumber, because one of the most reliable bellwethers of, apart from IQ tests, which have not evolved, which have not kept up with the pace of technology. The problem, one of the biggest bellwethers of how intelligent the American people are is vocabulary. Any psychologist, even the psychologists will tell you this. And they're a weird breed of people, but as Norman Vincent Peale, the very intelligent, very much lauded Norman Vincent Peale, one of Trump's early influences, said, even the psychologists will tell you, you look at someone's vocabulary, and that will, it's not an end-all, be-all measure of intelligence, because you can have an autistic person read the dictionary, and of course their vocabulary will kill mine or yours any day. But millennials are dumb. Millennials are dumb, and it's not. Again, I know that I don't want to sound judgmental, and I know it sounds like I'm being a royal ass, but I'm listen. You can either ignore the obvious, okay, and you can get destroyed, or you can honestly assess who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, what others say behind your back. And what others think of you. You can honestly assess that, or you can pretend it doesn't exist, and you can believe what Google tells you, which is that you're awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome, and you're special, and nobody's quite like you. And then you can go Mr. Rogers theology and see how far it gets you. Even Mr. Rogers noticed the problem, was a big critic of television, but he wasn't able to wrap his mind around it entirely. He was too close to the problem. America's man's man. I want to remain humble, because as I was beginning to say before, there was this wonderful book. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was part of our curriculum at Franciscan University. They should have had us reading Amusing Ourselves to Death. They picked this particular book because they're mired in Catholicism. They're kind of married to Catholicism, and Catholicism is a kingdom divided against itself. That's what it is, Catholics. And I know I'm not trying to win the Catholic vote there, but that's the truth of the matter. It's a kingdom divided against itself, and if you follow, like Jesus said, do what maybe. Oh, look at that! That's I don't know what that is over there. It's an interesting animal. I don't know if you caught it there. You can probably freeze frame or whatever. Go back and see what kind of animal that was. We got. I'm doing several jobs as I deliver these broadcasts. As I mentioned, this is not a movie set. This is a car, and I am doing actual jobs for people, and I don't talk about them because I don't. It's just they're not part of this, and I want to respect the privacy of people that that are in my very real life, which this is a slice of, but you can't really again they're not you don't thrust people into the public light, into the that aren't prepared for it. So we've gone on a number of tangents here. That book at Franciscan University. One thing that I'm very careful to not do is to imagine that somehow I am immune from the influence of media, because that's one thing that pastors have gotten a little bit full of themselves, but the American people has too, and this is really the critical element of the poison that you buy into. Peter Kreeft, a Catholic, in his book about what heaven will be like, he said he would imagine that heaven is a place where we can see each other, we can see ourselves. At least one of the critical aspects of heaven is that, or what you atheists might just consider a mature person by any stretch. Heaven, or an enlightened state, is in part defined as one in which you see yourself as you really are, as other people see you. And that's the degree to which we can do that. Affects our ability to communicate effectively with other people. If I understand where you're coming from, and I know you millennials because I am one. I'm an older millennial, so I'm equipped to guide you because I haven't been completely as brainwashed as the majority of you folks have been. Plus, I've been on the inside of the beast. I've been on the inside of the principality of the fake news, and this is why they're trying to get me. They're trying to destroy me even now, With this, anyway, just quick, I want to get this point out of the way before we hit yet another millennial tangent. And the tangents are necessary because you have no context. You have no context. You have been severely indoctrinated and miseducated by low information, unionized school teachers and college professors who seek not to help you, but to help themselves to you. And if you have any doubts about that, just look at how they've drained your bank account and what they've had to show for it. Again, we can talk more about all this, but we just don't have time. We have to get to the Johnson Amendment because this is very important. But again, trying to fill you in with context, pastors, like the rest of America, like millennials, imagine that somehow we're above the media. So we have our pride has gotten the best of us. We've imagined that somehow, and this is one thing that perhaps as the most media literate individual in the United States, short of President Donald Trump, because he's been through the whole dog and pony show of NBC, and beyond, and he's had ownership in it, and he is an expert in fake news. That's why it doesn't frighten him. Okay, this is how he won the election. God bless him, because he's done more for pastors, and pastors are so ungrateful. Many Americans are so ungrateful for what President Trump has done for all of us, and it's neither here nor there. We just make sure if you're not registered to vote, register to vote, and please make sure you do vote to re-elect our good President Donald J. Trump in November. Anyway. Most of us are not equipped to deal with the fake news. If the fake news came and knocking on your door tomorrow, if they don't like you, they will try to destroy you. And the only people that the fake news does not analyze, again, you got to stay focused, because what they'll do is they'll use your miseducation. They'll use the fact that you're uneducated, that you're a low information fake news watcher to their advantage. This is how they extract a profit from you this is how they sold America for years. Fat-filled white carb and saturated fat cocktails in the form of fast food and, supersize me. If you're not careful, they will use your ignorance to your advantage. They've been doing it all along. In fact, they're still doing it to you. And Silicon Valley, as I mentioned, the unholy alliance of Silicon Valley and their grandparent, the fake news, is still they're not just after America's man's man. They're after you too. They tried to destroy me. It wasn't a very successful attempt. I laud the attempt, but I have to admit that again, even my college professors at Franciscan, even we didn't have any idea how evil they were at the time. We didn't understand. I mean, in Christendom. I want to close that rabbit trail we opened earlier. So anyway, you gotta understand. You have to have humility when it comes to media, because you have to understand it's an unnatural electronic entity. Okay, it's not people. It's not the people you see on TV. It's the technology. As Marshall McLuhan wrote, the medium is the message. The medium is the message. And if you're in an enlightened state, or whatever you want to call it, you look at yourself watching television. You imagine that you're an outsider. I don't want to say a Martian, because that's something that my atheistic Mr. Qualters, my communist government school teacher once said, and that's not accurate, because Martians are silly. It's just it's like Mickey Mouse. But imagine that you're looking at yourself from the outside, and you're observing yourself watching television. It's like someone who's high on pot, truly analyze themselves? No, they can't. Someone watching television or a YouTube video, for instance, cannot, unless they're urged by the person on television to really take a good hard look at themselves watching television, they're going to be in this drugged out television watcher kind of television junkie kind of state. And America is a bunch of television junkies. You can't escape it. It's not just television. It's it's so-called popular music, which is really not popular at all. It's and again, that's a topic for another video. Bottom line, have a sense of humility and don't underestimate the power that the media, as a technological entity, as a principality, Christians, as an unnatural force of nature, do not underestimate the power that media has over you. We have to approach it with a sense of humility, and that's not a defeatist attitude, folks. As Barack Obama would say, folks. If I say folks enough, I'll sound like a folksy person. Cory Booker and Barack Obama, right? I'm looking out for you, okay? So it's not. I'm not an alarmist. I'm not an alarmist, but the fake news media, you have to be on your guard against it. Any kind of media, you have to be on your guard against it, because we don't understand. We have to have a sense of humility, and we have to acknowledge, as Jordan Peterson has said, that we have less control over our minds and our bodies than we think we do. You can't control your breathing. I mean, you can influence it. You can make a willful attempt, but it's a battle. You can't control your breathing. You can't control every time you can or don't go to the bathroom. You can't control. Of course, you can control whether you go in the right bathroom or the wrong one. But that's, again, another tangent. You can't control when you're hungry completely. You can kind of influence it. You can make a conscious effort, but at the end of the day, we are not in control of our own bodies. The Bible calls it the flesh nature. Neither are we in control of our minds. Okay, so when there's a soft core pornographic commercial on television, for anything from Diamonds Are Forever, a slogan which Nancy Pelosi just appropriated. Impeachment is forever. It's real creative, Nancy Pelosi. Really, seriously, rips off the greatest slogan of all time. Isn't that romantic? That's how the left gets their rise out of taking out of their sinister plots. Anyway, don't underestimate the influence that media has over you. And if you can understand that, if you can trust me that far, then you're going to go a long way, as America's man's man has come to really understanding the nature of fake news. People in the fake news don't understand this. They don't understand how much they have been brainwashed by the very medium that they work in. And that's why the fake news reacts rather violently to America's man's man commentaries, because I know more about the people who work in the fake news than many of the fake newsers themselves. It's sad, but it's true. And these people who have no control over their minds or bodies, one of my bosses he's just I believe he just finished up. Of course, the fake news isn't talking about him because he gives the whole profession a fake, he reveals what the profession is really like. But I do believe perhaps he went through some sincere repentance process, and I don't want to undermine the power of forgiveness and the power of second chances in this land of the free, the home of the brave, because we are a nation based on Jesus Christ, and Jesus said to forgive 7 times 7 times. And so I would the fake news is not talking about that. We'll do another video some other time on that. I got to get to the Johnson Amendment, because that's what this video is supposed to be about. But again, we have to explain all this, because if I don't give you this context, if this seems boring or if this is difficult to keep up with, there's a steep learning curve when you truly begin to understand how the fake news has been messing with your head. It's a mind blow for many of you, and it's not easy to figure out. And I appreciate your staying with me this far, because it shows that you're interested in educating your mind with the good, the pure, the holy, the productive, and you want to make something good of your life, and you don't want to be a part of the problem. And if you're among those people who want to truly help America reverse course, to get away from the terror, to get away from the fake news ethic, to get away from the ungodly sodomite way that this nation is headed in, I admire you and I appreciate you, and my hat's off to you, because it's a very difficult thing to do. Perhaps one of the most difficult things to do, and I appreciate your hanging in there and trying really hard to understand and keep up with the education and the wisdom that all too many Americans are too steeped in the cocktail of fake news and Silicon Valley to even attempt to surmount, because it goes against everything in your fake news brainwashed psyche to want to learn more, to want to get more context. And this is the pure, this is the good, this is the holy. And I thank you so much for wanting to do the right thing like America's man's man. It's not easy. I'm not going to lie to you. If you commit to a life of productivity, of helping your fellow American, not even for the sake of your fellow American or you, but for God, for your country, which is the highest, noblest profession in the world, the highest, noblest calling in the world, to serve your God, to serve your country by following America's man's man. My hat's off to you, and I'm thankful, because it is not easy. It is not easy. They want you to watch the pornographic Netflix disgusting shinola that they call art. They don't want you to watch Fall Musical, because that will help to heal you. They certainly don't want you watching America's man's man. That's why the fake news is stalking me in my various job sites, and they're probably going to keep doing it. But now we know what the fake news is. We have a better understanding of it. I had some idea of it, but coming out of Christianese kind of college, it wasn't Liberty University. I don't tell Franciscan this, but I actually wanted to go to Liberty University. It wasn't that I didn't. It wasn't that I was rejected. It was a whole bunch of reasons I didn't get to go there. But I ended up at Franciscan. And Franciscan is basically like the Catholic version of Liberty, and it's like it's just Christian enough, but it's also Catholic enough that the Catholics aren't going to hate you for sending your kid there. But it's Catholic, and Catholic is there's bad theology in Catholicism. There's bad theology. It's a mixed bag. The Catholics do have some things right, and I guess I'm kind of veering more Puritan at this point, because, well, without the Puritans, there wouldn't be any America. Without America, there wouldn't be any America's man's man. So, anyway, the fake news has tremendous influence. So just to recap a little bit, because I know I've given you a lot, and I don't want to be like that college professor that just dumps a whole bunch of information on you and doesn't make it easy at all. It doesn't make any effort to help you remember. So have humility when it comes to media. Pastors haven't figured this out yet, and that's why pastors are drowning in their own hermeneutical stew. Pastors aren't following the Bible anymore. It's that simple. Again, as we get to the Johnson Amendment, you have bad Catholics. Jesuit Catholics are bad Catholics. Okay. At least the Jesuits I've met. And I met the Jesuits at Boston College, who are about the most Jesuit-y Catholics of all. Tried to pray with one of them, and I'm not talking like a low on the totem pole, renegade rapist Catholic priest. I'm talking about someone who is up there, and I mean up there. Not there, but is up there at Boston College. I'm choosing my words carefully when it comes to Boston College, which Boston College is proud to say is not a college and not located in Boston. Well, Catholicism, I guess like Jesus said, do what the Pharisees do, but don't do what the Pharisees say, but don't do what they do. And that's even giving Jesuits too much credit. I tried to pray with this Catholic, actually more than one of them, when I met with them. I tried to pray with one of them. I said, okay, let's close this meeting in prayers. So, I don't want to pray. I prayed before we had the meeting. I think I understand why you're afraid to pray with another person, because it's this, and this is where Nancy Pelosi is really coming from. It's this, I know this nominal Catholic thing all too well. This is how Nancy Pelosi is able to talk about prayer and abort millions and millions of children in the same breath, and try to take down our president, who's trying to stop the abortion holocaust. It's a very poor fake news, or as the other gentleman who talks with half of his brain tied behind his back, and I am, because obviously if half of my brain weren't on the road, I wouldn't be here right now. But as the other gentleman who brags, I don't say he brags, it ain't bragging if it's true. Half of his brain is tied behind his back. He likes to say that the left, the Democrats, like Nancy Pelosi, they're playing out a soap opera that's written by the Democrats, and that's all it is. And it's a very poorly written BS satire of Christianity. It's basically Satan's. Who parodies Jesus? Well, Satan does, and that's what Nancy Pelosi is. Kind of like in the Passion of the Christ. Mixed feelings about Mel Gibson, but that demon that was holding the demon child as Jesus was being crucified, and they're like a mockery of the mother and child dynamic that God described. It's like a bald little ogre child, and that's what Nancy Pelosi is. She's a parody. She is an anger seething parody of the American way, a poorly written caricature of the American way, a satire, and of course America sees right through it now. But we didn't back in 2009 when the unholy alliance of Silicon Valley and the fake news attacked yours truly, America's man's man, and they tried to destroy all of us Bible-believing, patriotic Americans. They're still trying to destroy me, as I mentioned. They're camped out in front of numerous job sites that I do a number of jobs, and that's why I'm always on the road. You see me in the videos. I'm always I'm often on the road, and I wouldn't have it any other way, because we're doing good stuff to the American. We're doing good stuff for the American people, and we're telling you about it. With the trying to play to the minuscule benefits of the advances in technology from Silicon Valley. So at least you get America's man's man, even though everything else on the web, or most everything else, maybe total hogwash, you're following America's man's man, and I thank you for it. So have some humility when it comes to the influence that media has over you. Because let's face it, if someone repeats something enough times, eventually it's going to get in your head, and part of living the millennial lifestyle is knowing, as Ralph Waldo Emerson, I believe, said, many things that a wise man would want to be ignorant of. And when it comes to all things gossip, and the fake news is gossip, as Henry David Thoreau wrote, when it comes to gossip like that of the fake news and the late night hacks, who are nothing more than the alter ego of the fake news media, talking heads. It benefits you to be ignorant of it. You need that silent time. You need that personal space apart from the media, and it's one of the reasons I'm always railing against the music that they play at. It doesn't really matter what gym you go to. Between the radio and the gym, you need that time to really contemplate. Don't just listen to America's man's man every day, but after you listen to a man's man, just take some time to yourself. Take some time for God. Pray to God, and try to understand what I'm communicating to you, because listening to more is not always the solution. Pressing another button, clicking on something else is not always the solution. And I encourage you to back away from the fake news slowly. Maybe don't go cold turkey, but make a serious attempt to reclaim your mind space for yourself, and realize that anything offered for free on the internet, be it a program or a webcast or a podcast, is not really free, because they're looking to, again, without sounding too way out there for some of you, they're really looking to co-opt as much of your mind as possible, time that you could spend doing something more productive. Don't believe me? You think that sounds crazy? Well, think about it this way. You've spent hours, if you're a typical millennial, you've spent hours consuming passively shows on Netflix and just regular television, cartoons, and not even cartoons, but maybe it's a teen drama, whatever your thing is. If you're watching it on Netflix, it's satanic. Adam Sandler wacky faces. I guess Adam Sandler is trying to be a serious actor now, but it's right. But this is all time that the greatest generation and their offspring, even the boomers and Gen X, spent this time reading books and studying and focusing on doing whatever their vocation, their calling was, to make America great again. Not only that, they spent this time that, let's say, for instance, you're watching this video, and this video is a good use of your time, and I applaud you for seeking out that rare needle in a haystack, which is America's man's man among the rough, the tentacles of Silicon Valley and all that other trash that's out there. It's time that they used to spend with their families, and this is why millennials are dumber. This is why millennials are the dumbest generation, apart from Generation Z, I would say, because we've been getting progressively dumber ever since the Greatest Generation. I know, because I knew the Greatest Generation, and man, they were bang up people. They were good. They like sometimes they say up here, they good people. They good contra people. But they really were. They were a high school graduate of the Greatest Generation. Is far and beyond smarter than the typical Harvard graduate today, and that's a fact. I can say that without any fear of error. So getting to the Johnson Amendment, pastors don't understand. Pastors aren't immune to this. They look at millennials and say, "Oh, gee, well, look at those dumb florkers." Well, listen, you kind of dropped the ball, pastors. Pastors don't understand. They're not media literate, and so I don't blame them for letting the media pull the wool over their eyes for so long, and their flocks. But again, there comes a time where, just like when you receive Christ, suddenly there's a higher standard for you. And now that you have been enlightened by America's man's man, you know that all of your millennial peers are drinking the poison of the fake news, which they have. They've added sugar to it to make the poison more digestible, just like that old ant poison where they mix cyanide or whatever it is with sugar, so that the ants just suck it up and they all die. Well, the media and Silicon Valley are they've stuck an IV in you. They said it's to help you, but it's like a slow poison drip into your mind, and full of product placement and all sorts of things that they want you to, that will make you miserable, because they want you in a state of misery and panic, so that way they can sell more things to you. Because as C.S. Lewis, the author of the Narnia series, wrote in Mere Christianity, a man with an obsession is a man who is less impervious to sales resistance. Remember that. A man with an obsession is a man who is less impervious to sales resistance. And that's a paraphrase, but I promise you, no fear of error. The heart is right. The heart of what he said is completely dead on there. meaning that if you're obsessed, if they can feed your 6-year-old pornography, if they can convince if the communist unions in your government school can convince your 6-year-old that she's really a boy and that she ought to be packing a dildo, and I'm not making this up. This is you think, well, gee, this must be a very twisted America's man's man. Who is this gentleman? This is real. This is really happening. And I read it. I didn't read it in the fake news because it's the fake news, but I read it in either Mass Resistance or one of the many other sources of real news that we read. I think it was probably Breitbart or one of Breitbart or GOP USA, one of those folks. But anyway, it's if they can convince. If they can F with your head, then they can sell you anything, because suddenly you're in a desperate state, and you will watch, regardless of production values, you will watch anything, you will believe anything. This is exactly what the communists sought to do. Why? Because they want our soldiers going off to war, or even the soldier whose decision it is to press that, even the general whose decision it is. They want the President of the United States. And again, thank God for Trump, because he's such a wonderful, wonderful leader of such moral integrity. But the communist fake news, again, they're miserable people who want to spread the misery. They've been inflicted with the communist bug, and the best way to inflict others with the communist bug and change the system from the inside out, which is what communists do, is to inflict everybody with the same bug they've been inflicted with. And the most efficient vehicle to do that is the same way the Russians have always done it, which is the medium of film, which the communist Russians invented to propagandize their people, or television, Netflix. All of this comes out of the same sordid, unholy alliance of the fake news media, which again, the grandchild of which is Silicon Valley, the FANG companies: Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, and Netflix. So the Johnson Amendment. So again, just as you millennials have been brainwashed by Silicon Valley and Twitter, and oh no, the Kardashians and Joe Rogan, anyway, just the same way that you millennials have been brainwashed by the fake news approved, the government the deep state approved media that streams out of Silicon Valley and warps your mind, just like Tim Wildman has been saying all these years, the vast wasteland, the fake gods of Hollywood. Again, for your grandparents or for your parents, the fake, the brainwashers were the likes of Walter Cronkite. Fake news has always been a bad industry. It's always been a devious industry. It's always exploited the American people. This is a journalism major actually putting their education to excellent use in educating you. I might be the only one, because this is even way too advanced for the folks at Emerson, ironically, in Boston. They pride themselves on being the best media manipulators of all, but they've all become victims because they've limited their worldview. They decide, well, I'm just going to block out all the truth, and we're going to make up a narrative. This is what the communists do. It's all communist malarkey. But these professors, I toured Emerson once. They're wacky Greenpeace liberals. They're wacky Greenpeace liberals, and I do. I love nature. But I don't love the what's a mistake. The problem with environmentalism is that today it's been appropriated by the fake news media, the gospel of technology, ironically. So I don't want to get. We're getting way sidetracked here. We're gonna have to cover some of this in another video. So ask me, about just if you have any questions, hit me up. I'm here to educate and to enlighten, to lead you millennials out of the desert of stupidity that has been cast like an evangelifish hermeneutical web around you, so that you cannot escape. But I am cutting that web free. We're cutting you free of all the fake news lies and the broken evil feminazi hermeneutic of the modern evangelifish church. They call themselves Bible churches, but they're really not. They're They're just following the same fake news ethic that they don't, because pastors, I know Bible thumping pastors, and you know what they're doing at night? No, not that. No, they're watching the fake news, and they're trying to win over people. Read Amusing Ourselves to Death. If you get nothing else, you want to accuse me of being a Bible thumper? I will thump the book Amusing Ourselves to Death over your head, because it's just so true. Listen, Matt Groening, who created The Simpsons, watch it, and Hillary Clinton. All you millennials who you Hillary Clinton contingent over there. Hillary Clinton recommends Amusing Ourselves to Death, so you should read it for that reason. Even Hillary Clinton, and she's not a very smart person. She's like a Nancy Pelosi wannabe. She wishes she had the fake master legislator abilities of Nancy Pelosi. Is there? I think the only thing worse than being Nancy Pelosi is trying to be Nancy Pelosi. Anyway, the Johnson Amendment. So now that we've gotten this far, hopefully we'll get to this. But because I do have limited time, but this is all prerequisite, and you have to know all this. When you watch a show on television, they're assuming that you're dumb, and that's why they have to reduce everything to a 20-second soundbite, because they're just entertaining you. They're not actually informing you. I mean, seriously, do you remember half of what you watched on television or Netflix over the past year, particularly the fake news? Oh, again, the hypocrisy of the fake news. Because there's so much, I can't cover the hypocrisy of the fake news and Silicon Valley in one breath, in 1 hour. And I could do, and I will continue to reveal their secrets, and that's why they're after me right now, the fake news, the fake newsers, who control your internet, by the way, increasingly. It's such a satanic principality. It's such an unholy alliance of Silicon Valley and fake news. But you notice how, X corporation does something bad, right? And the fake news is all over them. It's like, oh, they, I don't want to. I can't. I don't know, I'm trying to think of a name of one, but I can't think of a name of one right now. But you notice how the fake news is very fond of taking down legitimate corporate American companies. See, Chick-fil-A is a bad example because they turned to the dark side. So I don't. The last thing I want to do is, like, right now, Chick-fil-A is a sodomite. Basically the hens, the chicks left the roost. Of the protective roost of Truett Cathy. See, this is real time. Half of my brains are really tied behind my back. They're on the road, so bear with me a little bit, because this is not a television set. And there's no teleprompter. I don't have legions of fake news dweebs mechanically, feeding me words. This is actual intelligence. This is wisdom. You're watching the real deal. Do you imagine? This is an historical americasmansman.com website. And don't follow my YouTube channel, whatever you do. Go on over to americasmansman.com. Put your email address at the top of the screen. Hit subscribe. It is the most informative email that you will ever get, because you're going to get notified as YouTube does now. Again, they're going to try to, because they do this all the time. So we have to stay one step ahead of the demonic fake news in Silicon Valley. And we do this by warning you. YouTube is going to shut down this channel. Okay, they might do it now. They could do it any second. Okay, they threatened to. They're going to. So make sure you're on the list at americasmansman.com. Put your email address up there and hit subscribe. If I don't get to, okay, so the Johnson Amendment. Your pastors are soaking in the fake news. They're not following the Bible. They are. And so they've become a whole bunch of media weekend men, communist weekend men. The communists have demoralized them to a large degree. The communist media has gotten inside their heads, just as they've always done from the beginning with the communist propaganda. And they have convinced even your pastors that Jesus Christ is not. Pastors don't really believe in Jesus Christ anymore, because the communists have, or at least they know they should, but they're very. There's the. Too much media has instilled a sense of self-loathing in the boomers, That's where it started to erode with all the media that they consumed, the unholy media. I'm not going to talk about the Beatles, but because we got to make this quick. You got the fake news. You have the fake news demoralizing. Generation Xers are known for their cynicism, right? That's like their number one quality. And it only got worse with Kurt Cobain, who eventually killed himself with a drug overdose, like every other person on VH1, right? So behind the music, millennials have been, and it's just because the media has been brainwashing us to be progressively dumber and dumber and dumber. It's taken multiple generations, and this is why it may not be obvious to you, but it's obvious to me because I knew the Greatest Generation, and I'm a media scholar, and so I understand the history of media. I understand how the communists have used it, where it came from, where film came from. Again, Russian propaganda is the origins of Hollywood film as we know it today. And they're doing the same thing with it. They're using propaganda, an unnatural medium, to exploit your ignorance and cause more of it, to get you addicted, to get you so reacting to whatever they're saying. It's like you click on something, you don't even know that you're doing it, and that's what makes it so effective. So, parting words, the Johnson Amendment. Trump hasn't gotten rid of it yet. Now, the Washington Post, the Washington Compost, as us enlightened, informed people call it, thanks to Huckabee there, very good call, who was my first choice, I have to admit, before I voted for Trump. But in the end, he couldn't cut the mustard. He couldn't cut the mustard of the fake news. Doesn't mean that Mike Huckabee is less of a person than Trump, but Trump is more media literate. That's why Trump won the election instead of Mike Huckabee or any of the other folks out there, okay? Because people are ignorant. You have Pulpit Freedom Sunday. Pulpit Freedom Sunday. What's Pulpit Freedom Sunday? It's an initiative. It's an initiative to get pastors to rebel against the stupid Johnson Amendment. But you know what? Pastors are so intimidated, just like I was when the media, when the fake news first came after me. Pastors are so scared. They're scared to death of the fake news media. Scared to death of the fake news media. And they're scared to death of the fake news media to a degree that they're so scared of the fake news media that they will not, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to, the pastors, just got to make sure the fake news media isn't stalking me today, because that's what happens when you actually live the American dream and you stand up to their baloney. The bottom line here is Trump has not repealed the Johnson Amendment. Okay, it's still on the books. I know he just passed an executive order, and I'm not saying that Trump. Listen, the last thing I want to do is demoralize you from voting for Trump, because he is a bang-up character. He doesn't talk about stuff. He doesn't preach like the unholy pastors do. He goes out and he does, and that's what makes him such a wonderful candidate. He does it. He goes out there every day, like so many of you who watch this broadcast, protecting your workplace from the sodomites, protecting your children from the sodomites, homeschooling your children so that those commie union hacks in your public school who are sucking your tax dollars out of you to brainwash the masses of unsuspecting children who grew up on fake news gospel and public television children's infotainment. Fake news media is after all of us, okay? And I don't want to listen. Trump is a bang-up character. We got to get him reelected, and we will get him reelected, because let's face it, the Dems have but they got nothing. They got Nancy Pelosi. Just forget. Well, listen. I'm not intimidated by the fake news, and neither are you. They're stalking me today. They're still trying to kill me. The fake news is trying to get me. Fake news is trying to get me because I know their lies, because I was on the inside of their principality, and now they want to ruin me. Just like they want to ruin all of you who are a threat to their communist agenda. Why? Because they want to turn you into a product they can buy and sell to advertisers, and they can't do that unless you're at your wit's end, either because of the terrorism which they promote, or because of whatever other distraction of the day they might have. communist distraction of the day. They're an incessant, never-ending stream of Netflix pornography, or they're promoting terrorism. They're idolizing the Twin Towers burning for all of us to watch, idolizing murder, trying to turn us all against each other. The fake news isn't going to do it anymore. Not if America's man's man is on the clock. And as for the Johnson Amendment, President Trump, you got to overturn it. We're watching you, but listen. Here's the cincher. Here's the clincher. Is that pastors, you got to do your job. You got to do your job, and you know what? President Trump is out there doing. You're preaching, okay? You're preaching. You got to be like those. You got to be not like you're being now, like a fake pastor who cares about tithes because I'm scared and the fake news is gonna tell the age of Christendom is over. We're in a post-Christian America. What do I do? Listen, pastor. Listen, pastor. Don't be so freaking dependent on the Alliance Defense. What the freak is the name of it? Alliance Defending Freedom. Is it Alliance Defending Freedom that sponsored Pulpit Freedom Sunday, or Pulpit Freedom Sunday, where pastors are encouraged to support a candidate of their choice, just like the early colonial pastors who fought alongside the good revolutionaries who birthed this great nation, as divinely inspired by Almighty God. Now, those were pastors. Pastors, listen to me. Listen, I want you to listen to me, pastors. Are you a man of God, or are you a pussy? You're going to keep blaming the media? You're going to keep blaming politicians? You're going to say, that Trump, yeah, you're on Ashley Madison. Shut up. Pastors, you're going to put your own skin in the game like Jesus Christ did for you and me? Or are you going to keep whining about how, I don't want anything to do with the political issues unless the fake news approves of it, like social justice, which is really not justice at all, but a figment of your fake news brainwashed imagination. Pastors, we got to start talking politics, and not like whore Beth Moore and that stupid Christianity Yesterday magazine. You got to be the real deal, pastors, because your flocks are looking to you, and if you're looking to Trump to do all the dirty work of being crucified on the cross, well, that's it's kind of an evangelifish thing to do. So I'm calling you out. Pastors, do your job, okay? Charles Finney, you know what he said. He said, if America is crumbling, you blame the pulpit. Maybe that's not mine to do, but you take a long, hard look at yourselves, pastors. Are you standing for the gospel of Christ? Where were you when homosexuality was decriminalized? You were watching out for your tithes, were you? You got your eye off the ball because you're watching too much fake news. And the age of we live in a post-Christian America, like communist lies. We don't want to be on the wrong side of history. We don't want to be perceived as haters. Come on, pastors, do your job, okay? President Trump is trying so very hard for you with this Johnson Amendment business. He just passed an executive order. But listen, pastors, you got to do your job. If you're not willing to put skin in the game, it's not President Trump wasn't elected to be the national pastor. You guys got to step up to the plate, darn it, and defend Jesus Christ and stand against all these things like the interracial sexual relations, sodomy, and all that. Yeah, I'm saying that's interracial sexual relations, premarital sex, perversion. You got to stop watching the fake news. You got to get awakened. You have to understand. You have to get media literate, and you have to have a sense of humility and realize the effect that the media has had on you, and just how skewed your feminazi hermeneutic has become over the last century because of technology's influence on you. You got to repent, pastors. You got to realize you've been going the wrong way. And if you can, because if you can do that, then America will. Okay, this is America's man's man. You got to push President Trump. Don't leave it to Dr. James Dobson, because you're afraid. Dr. James Dobson, what a saint. What a saint the good doctor is, Dr. James Dobson. And you all backed away from him in battle. You backed away while Dr. Spock was polluting the minds of your congregation, and you, because you were all watching Dr. Spock too, and a child will lead them, or as Isaiah says, a wicked generation led by women and children. We're in it. We're in the generation of sodomites. We're in the generation of Sodom because you pastors dropped the ball, okay? And oh, what a blessing that Trump has given you. You've been given a second chance to lead America back to greatness. Will you accept the challenge? This is your mission, should you choose to accept it, to lead America back to greatness, to purge your church of the sodomites and sodomy, to exhort the sodomites to repent or leave your flock, the flock, alone. Do you have the cojones to do it, as the illegal aliens say, to protect your church, your nation from the illegal alien, to not be sucked in to their manipulative tale of fake refugee status, which they use to wreak more terrorism and evil upon your flock? All because the fake news has invented imaginary crises and pipes them into your living room daily and takes advantage of your kind-hearted, the kind-hearted nature God's put on the heart of every man. Say, well, who is your neighbor? Yes, we know who our neighbors are, and we're charitable, but we will not be manipulated by the fake news any longer. Do you hear me, pastors? Can I get an amen? Millennials, do you hear me? Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? I want to explain Women for Trump. We're going to have to put it off into another video. Why women, the leftists don't get why women want Trump. The long story short is that it's like, who's going to get us blown up and who isn't? And, even the women and all their emotional intelligence perhaps just have a sense that it's President Trump, and they're right. They are right. We'll get to that later. This is America's Man's Man. We'll see you in the next video. God bless you.